Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Riffin with HB. This is week 3. We're covering Lynyrd Skynyrd this week. I'll give you guys a couple minutes here in the chat to join in, and then we'll get started into the episode. Anderson, cheers, man. Cheers. We're going to give everyone just a couple minutes to join in, and we'll go ahead and get started officially with the episode. Cheers. Thank y'all for joining in. Remember, after the show, we're doing jam sesh over on Discord. We're gonna probably swap over to either Zoom or Twitch whenever we get there. But you guys just join us over on Discord on the Mystics channel. What's everyone got going on this afternoon for their weekend? And also, if you guys along the way, during or after the show, have any ideas for bands that you want to see, drop it in the comments and let me know. We'll eventually get to them for sure. Obviously, there's only 52 weeks in a year, so we can only get one Saturday every single year, but or sorry, one Saturday every weekend for the entire year. Next weekend we'll be covering the band The Hollies, so I think that'll be pretty interesting. We all know their music. I don't really know much about them, but everybody knows their music and who they are, so we'll see. Be really interesting, I think. It's a question from Mark C. Cheers. Thank you all guys for joining in. I guess I can go ahead and get started with I want to talk about a little bit about that was the first band I ever saw was Lynyrd Skynyrd. I saw them at the South Carolina State Fair when I was probably 16 years old. I remember we worked all day on a construction site, and then we left and went to the fair to go see him at the fair. So I remember hanging out outside the fairgrounds, smoking a joint, hanging out, waiting for the concert. And when we got to the concert, I was so excited and so pumped. And there was a good number of people there. The seats were pretty filled out, especially in the South. Lynyrd Skynyrd were a pretty popular, famous band. But as I was sitting there, the band starts and no one around is really that hyped about being there. You know, they're just kind of casually watching it like a movie. So the whole time, the singer's trying to get people to get hyped up, and people are just not really into it. So yeah, The Doors is definitely a band we'll be covering as well, for sure. Yeah, I could go ahead and write them down for you. Yep, very good band. But back to what I was saying. So the concert was really great. They played a lot of great hits. The highlight for me, the band was on point. The guitarist, the drummer, everything was really sweet. Vocals were really nice. It's crazy how much they still sound like old Skynyrd. But the highlight for me was the keyboardist. It blew me away. The pianist, how well he was playing. It's next level. It still sounds the same exact way as the old records used to sound. So that's really cool. But I was thinking to myself, you know, I was in a small town. It's Columbia, South Carolina, so it's not really like Atlanta or Charlotte. So they came there to play to us, and you know, the thing about being in a small town is the crowds are not going to be as into it. You're not going to be as like ready for it. So you're kind of going to get a lackluster experience because those people feed off of the energy of the crowd. Cool, stuff. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for being here. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into it. It's Lynyrd Skynyrd today. We're covering from 1964. Next week, we'll be covering the band The Hollies, so keep that in mind. We'll cover all this again at the end of the show. Thank you guys for joining. Let's go ahead and get into it. So Lynyrd Skynyrd, 1964 is when they originally formed. They're from Jacksonville, Florida. The band name originally was called My Backyard. They actually went through a couple different names, several different names, a few of them being the Noble Five. One of the names of the band was the 1%, and we'll get into why these names came about. And also, we'll get into the story of Lynyrd Skynyrd, how they became Lynyrd Skynyrd here. Before we do that real quick, go ahead and show off a picture of the band for you guys. There's Ronnie in the front right there, the rest of the band in the back. Very hippie vibe with these guys. Very southern hippie rock vibe. All right, I have this slide right here. This explains a little bit about the name of the band, Lynyrd Skynyrd, how they got their name. It started off, they got it from a high school gym teacher. His name was Lynyrd Skynyrd, who punished them for having long hair, and they changed his name to Lynyrd Skynyrd to be more, to be more mocking, to sound more southern. And they, it says here that the band members, particularly Gary Rossington, frequently clashed with Coach Skinner at Robert E. Lee High School in Jacksonville, Florida, over his enforcement of the school's anti-long hair policy, turning their rebellious frustration into the band's iconic name. That's how they got it. It's pretty cool. How the bands got their name is always really interesting to me. Let's see here. I want to pull this up right here. This actually shows the current members of the band. They kind of obviously switches throughout the years, so I don't really want to highlight the current members as much as the original members, but to give the original members credit, here's the current lineup. So the original band members are Ronnie Van Zant, the lead vocalist, Gary Rossington on the guitar, Alan Collins was the lead guitarist, Larry Ginstrom was the bassist, and Bob Burns was on the drums. We've got some notes here for you guys. Also, I'm gonna check the comments for you too as well. Cheers, everyone. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you. Cool. Hey, how are you? So, some facts about the band I wanted to highlight. Let's see here. Sorry, I got my notes out of order, you guys. The band. The song Freebird was a song that on the album is 9 minutes and 8 seconds, but shortened down to just under 5 minutes or maybe just over 5 minutes. Sorry, I can't remember for radio play. But the song goes up to 15 minutes. I actually have the exact facts here on that. 1 second, let me pull it up. I think I have it in my other one. 1 second, and I'll get the exact time links. But some of the live album versions go to just over 15 minutes. But there's a few of them that go over 13 minutes. And a lot of Lynyrd Skynyrd songs, they would jam on their songs for 10, 12, 13 minutes. They would take a song that's just about 3 or 4 minutes radio play, and or maybe 4 or 5 minutes actually, and take and just jam on it for a long time, extend the solos out. And that's what made them really a great band, is that they were able, it's the language of music. I talk about this a lot, how bands could get on the stage together and just talk to each other with their instruments and know when to switch up the beat and know when to come back into the verse or go to the chorus or switch it up. And they had a great leader. Ronnie was a great leader and a great musician to guide these boys and to help not just take the reins, but to let them do their thing and to add their parts into the music. Then they could talk to each other with their instruments and just know when to do and what to do, how to do it. Their rhythmic guitar solos, it just made sense. So that's the one thing I wanted to highlight, because their guitar solos for a lot of bands, they're just shredding, and then it's for a lot of people it's hard to comprehend if they're not musicians. But for a band like Lynyrd Skynyrd, they're a great example of what you can do with a solo and make it rhythmic and make it to where people can dance and bob their head and still get into the rhythm of it without being just somebody shredding on a guitar. And boy, did he shred. So still, it has both of the aspects to it as well. Freebird became a staple, closing the shows and formerly requested at other bands' concerts. This is why people go scream Freebird or play some Skynyrd at a concert now. And that just shows you how these boys rocked so hard that for the few years that they were rocking in the original band, that still now to this day, people call it out at every concert that you go to. You hear somebody say, play Freebird or play some Skinner, or, you know, there's call outs to that band. It's pretty cool. It's interesting. So, let's see here. Pull up another picture for you guys. Going on. Very, very hippie vibe. Very 70s band for sure. It's not the first time they got picked on for having long hair, I'm sure. We'll get into the story of the plane crash here a little bit later. And in the story of the plane crash, when they found him, one of the guys who found them in the plane, he kind of questioned what these hippies, quote unquote, were doing here in a plane, because as far as he knew where he was from, hippies didn't have jobs. So they went over what the long hair hippies, quote unquote, were doing in a plane. That was pretty interesting. Just shows the different time period, because you guys have to keep in mind that during the time of 69, people were being recruited into the Vietnam War, and that's actually how they ended up getting their new drummer for their band after he came back. So this is a very similar story to what was going on during CCR. We talked about this time of people being recruited into war, and a time of people trying to. This is a great example of people trying to avoid that life and trying to go to the way of just playing music and being free with long hair and dressing the way you want, talking about what you want and the music. And Lynyrd Skynyrd, they talked about the things that they lived. They were not fake, and that's what made them an iconic Southern rock bands, because they talked about hunting and fishing, and that's what they did in their music. And we're going to get a little bit more into that as well later, but I kind of want to go ahead and get into the story of the plane crash now as well. I want to highlight this a little bit. We talked about how in the last episode of Riffin with HB, how he claimed that he said he would never live to be 30 years old, that he didn't think he'd live past 29 years old, which is kind of interesting. And there's a quote that he says that I believe he was speaking to his father, but he said that that's his limit, is 29 years old. It's interesting because we talked about this with a couple of my friends, and a lot of people claim that that's as long as they'll live to. But it didn't happen. The plane crash actually happened in the hold on one second. Gillsburg, Mississippi is where the plane actually crashed at. The plane crashed shortly after taking off, and three of the band members, as well as the band's assistant road manager, the pilot, and the co-pilot, a total of 6 people died in the incident. And Ronnie Van Zant, the lead singer, being one of them. And it changed the whole course of the band after that. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. I have a bunch of notes. We'll get into this. And then there's an interesting fact here I have about the Artemis, the drummer of the band, who, after surviving the plane crash, Artemis, while the drummer was shot in the shoulder by a farmer as he stumbled through the field with a group of survivors. And I have a clip here on that. I'll go ahead and play it for you guys.
I would never call my band Lynyrd Skynyrd. Without Ronnie Van Zant, there is no Lynyrd Skynyrd. Everything was great. We were on top of the world. We had an airplane with our name on it.
But that airplane carrying Lynyrd Skynyrd from South Carolina to Louisiana never made it to its destination.
Then we ran out of fuel over Mississippi and spiraled in.
The plane crashed, killing 6, including members of the band.
Ronnie was killed, Steve Gaines was killed, Cassie Gaines. She sat directly in front of me.
But Artemis survived and amidst the chaos was able to run to a nearby farmhouse to seek help. That's when he found a man.
He was just protecting his family. That's all.
He had a gun and told Artemis, who was covered in blood, to stop.
I was stumbling and I moved forward and he fired and caught me in the shoulder. And it spun me around. I yelled plane crash with what I thought was my last breath.
Luckily, Artemis wasn't injured too badly and the man helped him, but there was no saving the 6 who died that day. The band stopped playing together until 1987 when Ronnie's brother took the lead. But Ronnie, Steve, Cassie, and the others lost, continued to...
All right. So yeah, that's the drummer from the band. That's him just speaking a little bit on the story of him getting shot by the farmer. Let's see what my next note here is, guys. And this is speaking a little bit more. This is the information I have here. The Freebird. The original unedited version of Freebird is just under 15 minutes, and however, there is a demo version that plays up to just under 10 minutes. But there's a demo version that plays up to 11 minutes and even 12 minutes. Hold on 1 second, I screwed it up here, guys. But yeah, I'll just leave it down there in the bottom so you guys can see it. There you go. It's back up there now. And then there are various live versions that play the song that smash through the 13-minute barrier, and such as one more from the road and live from Town Steel, the longest version of Freebird, which is the longest song by Lynyrd Skynyrd. On the live album, Southern by the Grace of God, goes by just a mere seconds under 15 minutes. So here's an image here of them playing in front of about 120,000 heads out there in the crowd. Kind of shows you this is in 1976. This is just before the crash, about a year or so before the crash. And this is at the peak of their fame and their performances. And it just shows how famous they really were and how much they had an impact really super quick. So I want to let's go ahead and just talk through some facts here. I'm also going to check back in the comments right here. Yes, sick. Everybody's sick. So you guys who are sick, you got to rest up and stay hydrated. Make sure you're eating. And cheers, everyone. Neil Young on a Southern Man, 13 minutes. Yeah. We've kind of talked a little bit about this. Interesting fact is that they actually did have beef with Neil Young despite the song Sweet Home Alabama, and I think I have that in my notes, so maybe we'll speak about that again. But yeah, they were actually friends, and they kind of were friends with each other's music, so pretty neat, cool little thing. Sweet Home Alabama was actually a callback to, or not a callback, but a challenge to one of his songs anyway, so love the improv element, 100%, Sam. Yeah, those boys, they knew music, they understood music, they didn't just, learn a song technically and then get up there. They understand how a guitar works for, how can I fill in right here this 3 seconds in between the song switching up. It takes a lot of practice and musical intuition. Great tune. Did you cry like a bad man? Cheers, HB. Driving, lurking. Cheers, man. RD. Pacers. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Thank you. Cool. Let's get back into it here. The band spent 4 years touring small venues under various names with several lineup changes before deciding on Lynyrd Skynyrd in 1968. The band's released its first album, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd, self-titled, in 1973. And by then, they had settled on a lineup that included the bassist Leon Wilkinson, keyboardist Billy Powell, and guitarist Ed King. Burns left and was replaced by Artemis Prime in 1974. And King left in 1975 and was replaced with Steve Gaines in 1976. So at the height of their fame in 1970, the band popularized the Southern rock genre with songs such as Sweet Home Alabama and Freebird. After releasing 5 studio albums and 1 live album, the band's career was abruptly halted in October 20th, 1977, when their chartered plane crashed, killing Van Zant, Steve Gaines, and backup singer Cassie Gaines, and seriously injuring the rest of the band, and obviously killing the pilot and co-pilot as well, as I mentioned. So the actually, I want to backtrack here. Lynyrd Skynyrd formed in 1987, actually, originally from a reunion tour with Ronnie's brother, Johnny Van Zant, as um, a lead vocalist. If I didn't say reformed, I meant to say reformed. They continued their tour and recorded with Johnny Van Zant and Ricky Medlock, who first wrote and recorded with the band in 1971 from 1972 before his return in 96. Over the years, other founding members of the bands have either died or during or after that time in the band. In January of 2018, Lynyrd Skynyrd announced his farewell tour and continued touring until 2022. So this is during that time that I mentioned that I had saw them at the State Fair in South Carolina. Members were still working on the band's 15th album at the time of Rosington's death in 2023, after which no founding members of the band remained. In 2024, Rolling Stone magazine ranked Lynyrd Skynyrd number 95 on the list of 100 greatest rock bands of all time, or sorry, artists of all time. And Lynyrd Skynyrd was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on March 13th, 2006. And as of 2023, the band has sold more than 38 million records in the United States. AllMusic called them the definitive Southern rock band. This is so funny because as I was watching this documentary, the 72 hours documentary, which you guys should check out on YouTube, it just kind of explains the last 72 hours of the band and what happened with the plane and everything. But in that, the very first comment in the video, it talks about how Lynyrd Skynyrd is the world's greatest rock band. I kind of laughed and looked at that and thought to myself, I don't agree with that, but I definitely don't not agree with that either, because they're the idea of what a perfect rock band is, especially for the 70s. Rolling Stones and Lynyrd Skynyrd and CCR, we mentioned, these are like iconic, perfect ideas of what a real rock band is and what it should be. Let's go ahead and get into some kind of facts here about their Billboard charts and stuff as well too. Alan Collins received his first guitar in '63 and was later in a band called the Mods in Jacksonville, Florida. The Mods membership included J.R. Rice and Larry Steele, and in early '64, Ronnie Van Zant joined another local band, the Squires, which soon renamed to Us. That year, at a local Battle of the Bands, Us performed against the Mods and won the competition. Van Zant, however, left Us shortly afterward, and in early summer of '64, bassist Larry Junestrom, drummer Bob Burns, and guitarist Jerry Rossington had formed a trio called Me, You, and Him. And then later in '64, teenagers Van Zant, Rossington, and Burns all became acquainted while playing on a rival baseball teams. And the trio decided to jam together one afternoon after Burns was injured by a baseball hit by Van Zant. They set up their equipment in a carport of Burns' parents' house and played the Rolling Stones hit Time's on My Side. Liking what they heard, they immediately decided to form a band, and bassist Larry Junestrom rounded out the lineup. They soon approached guitarist Alan Collins to join the band, and he agreed. And he agreed to join just 2 weeks later, and then the band later rehearsed in Junestrom's carport after Burns' parents said the band was too loud. The band settled on the name My Backyard, which we talked about earlier, and later changed to Conquer the Worm for a day or two, and then the Noble Five, and then it finally became known as the 1%. So in '68, Van Zant sought a new name after growing tired of taunts from the audience that the band had 1% talent. And at Burns' suggestion, the group settled on Lynyrd Skynyrd. The band had become a top band in Jacksonville, Florida, highlighting some local concerts and opening for several national acts. Pat Armstrong, a Jacksonville native and partner in Macomb, Georgia, a partner in Macon, Georgia-based Hustlers Incorporated, along with Phil Warden's younger brother Alan, became the band's manager. And they also, um, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about the label that they were working for right now as well too. The band in 1972 was discovered by musician, songwriter, and producer Al Cooper of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, who had attended one of the shows in Atlanta, and he signed them to the Sounds of the South label, which was distributed and supported by MCA Records. So if you guys are familiar with this, the band working for MCA is about how they were working for this record label and they were kind of signing their life away from these people. And in the beginning, Lynyrd Skynyrd was making no money because Ronnie was getting drunk and he was signing these contracts and he wasn't understanding what he was signing. He was just signing it, thinking it would be all fine in the end. And of course, it's not the only one. There's so many people that have this story. It's a big part of the Tom Petty documentary where he talks about this. You're just trying to get big and you're wanting that money and you're desperate. So you're signing these contracts and then later on they're screwing you. They're taking percentages way off the top. So let's see here. Lynyrd Skynyrd's fan base continued to grow rapidly in 1973, thanks to their opening of the Who's Quadrophenia. So this is whenever they opened up for the Who, and this really kind of changed their whole status and got them really put on the radio because they were opening it up for the Who. People were already going to see this band, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, these guys opening it up for the Who! Who is this?" And it totally set off their career. Rest in peace, rest in paradise, Tom Petty, 100%. Well, we're going to get into Tom Petty a little bit as well, too. It's kind of a sad story as far as that, too. And again, I don't like to talk about dramas, but there's certain facts of bands that are sad. Like this involves a plane crash and, people dying and stuff. It's like, it's not always sweet, but as long as it doesn't involve drama about, who they cheated on or what their ideologies were or any of that. We're just talking about the music here. Yeah. So yeah, but you're 100% right. Rest in peace, Tom Petty, and we'll talk about it. Hey guys, can you hear me? Can you just let me know if you can hear me? Hey guys, can you hear me okay? Cool. Okay, sorry guys. My phone died. We had to swap over, so we're gonna get back into it. Cool. Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the band actually now. We've kind of gotten to the facts though, we talked about it. So I want to talk about it just personally. I have some notes here. Hold on. So some facts about
Ronnie Van Zant, he wanted a couple things he wanted before he died. He always talked about this because remember, you got to think about it in his head. He was already assuming that he was going to die in his head, whether he knew he was going to or not. He wanted a couple things before he wanted to die. He wanted a bucket list, and a couple of the things he wanted was an old truck, and he wanted a trophy bass. So the old truck he got was a 55 Chevy truck, and the bass that he ended up getting before he died was a bass that was 12 pounds, 8 ounces. And he was there with the road manager of the band. He was Ronnie's friend growing up, his best friend. So whenever he got older for the band, he was kind of their security, and he was with his friend whenever he actually caught that bass. So it was kind of like a memorable moment for him. And his friend kind of blames himself because he actually spoke to the pilot of the band and said there's something wrong with the plane because they've been having issues. So he kind of got into a little bit of an argument with the pilot of the plane, and the pilot claimed that he was the pilot and he knew better than the guy, and he called him a fool and basically walked away after they had an heated argument about it. So after he left, they ended up still getting on the plane and the plane crashed. So he still to this day kind of really blames himself for that. And he kind of says that that's the reason why he ended up coming back for more, so he could be with his friend. So it's kind of crazy how fate plays into this story. But you know, I have this in here, and I'm going to read it how I have it. It's like if you whether you love this band or whether you hate them, whether you like them, whether you don't like them, that's all interpretive. But the fact of the matter is, you know, CCR is a great band, but CCR was from California. They weren't from the South. They were like writing these stories of the South, which made them a great rock band in their own sense. But Lynyrd Skynyrd was a Southern rock band. They were living this. They were hunting. They were fishing. They were playing poker. They were having guns. They were shooting guns. They were doing drugs. They were drinking, and all this stuff is in their music. They even talk about their record label, about how they were signing their life away to this record label, and they were putting it in their music, and they were telling everyone about it. But for example, the MCA, Working for MCA is such a great song because it totally relates to every human being, because we do that when we work. We sign our life away. We sign a contract whenever we work for somebody. And so you're listening to that song, you're relating to it. Songs like That Smell, even if you don't have a drug addiction, you still can listen to that song and relate it and put it in your own words. We talked about Give Me 3 Steps. It's like these songs, like they create imagery in your head, and no better band does that than Lynyrd Skynyrd, because the songwriter is a poet, and some of the greatest bands are, because they're able to take what your idea is in your head and put it into a song, but do it in 3 minutes, or to do it in 4 or 5 minutes. And it's really difficult to do. It really makes a band who they are, some of the greatest bands. Yeah, they talk about getting thrown out of hotels. All that stuff's in their music. There's plenty of stories about them totally trashing hotels and throwing TVs out the window and just being rock stars, 100%. And all of that is they talk about in their music, everything. Yeah. And for me, the thing I want to highlight, because like I mentioned, so towards the end of their career, they kind of gotten, sober from being drunk on stage and just drinking and being whiskey rock and rollers. It's even one of their names of their songs. So in the beginning, they were drinking, and you can see, I want you guys to do me a favor and go check out some of their earlier recordings from like 75, or sorry, 75, 1975 or earlier. And you can see Ronnie on stage, and as he performs, he kind of stands there, and he stands there with his eyes closed, and he just sings the song, which has always been really intriguing to me watching Lynyrd Skynyrd, especially when I was younger, watching them live on stage, like watching the band live and trying to get a feel for the vibe. Ronnie, you'd think that when he's on stage, that's the way the song sounds, that he would be jamming out, but his stage presence is just, he stands there and he just delivers the song. But in 75 and earlier, you can kind of see how his eyes are closed. He's not really moving. He's just singing the song. And the vocals aren't as good. They're lackluster because of it. He might have been feeling better, feeling like he was doing good. But in 77, all those early 77 recordings from April and throughout July, they're some of the best recordings of Lynyrd Skynyrd. His voice was on point because he finally got sober and started practicing his craft and really honing in the technicalities of his singing and the timing of the song and everything that he was doing. It really created and changed the band. And his friend was also really one of the ones to blame for that. And a lot of people didn't really like it for it, but he helped get those guys sober, and he would take bottles and hide it from them and try to really make them good, and they were good. And it's funny because a couple months before they died, Ronnie had explained to him that, hey man, we're out there, we're killing these shows, and we're sober doing it. It's crazy. And you could see it in the music. They got better because, again, even though he's still, the way he plays on stage is like so Ronnie. It's like, you know, hovered over the mic. He's a huge boy, and he's got a freaking crazy deep voice. So, but in the earlier 75 recordings compared to the 77 ones, totally flip-flopped. Lollipop, yeah, this is from Nerdy right here in the chat. Actually, this is one of those mushroom pops. So we're gonna try this sucker out and see. No pun intended. Yeah, cool. Cheers, and thank you guys so much for being here. We'll kind of hang out for a little while. In just a minute here, we'll jump over to Discord and we'll have a jam session. You guys come hang out and join us and be jamming out. What other bands you guys want to see? Next week we're going to do the Hollies. Derek was talking about the Doors. We talked about Tom Petty. So we'll be talking about all these bands coming up here, you guys. Can only do one in a week, so we're just going to slowly knock them out as we go. Just try to give them the best representation of the band and what they are, who they are, where they come from. You know, we'll have to get to the technical stuff, the years and the albums and everything, but I also love to get to just, you know, the fun stuff of the band, how I feel about them. Let's try it and see. It's supposed to be chocolate orange. Is that the flavor? Yes, sir. Chocolate orange. Cool. Very good. Very nostalgic. It's like the orange Tootsie Pop flavors. Cheers. What's the dosage on these bad boys, Neri? Cheers. Thank you guys so much for being here. Yeah, the biggest thing I want to highlight on the band, if you guys haven't heard any of the music and you want to hear about it, you guys got to check out the Second Helping album. Listen to it all the way through. It's important when you guys listen to the album, you got to listen to the whole album. Get the idea of what the bands are. Maybe modern music's a little different, but especially in the 70s, the albums are meant to be listened to all the way through because it tells a story and it sends you on a journey. And just like I mentioned about this in the last episode, certain songs will take you up and then take you down, just like a great story will. This album does the same thing. Like each song is taking you up and taking you down, even though each song has its own up and down. It's the craft of the artist. Yes, sir. Cool deal. We'll see. Cheers. Hopefully it'll be a little bit of musical motivation. Cool. Cheers. Kind of like a Tootsie Pop. Yeah, it's very reminiscent of that. Gingerbread cookies were delicious. Cheers. As we're talking about all this, you guys kind of sidetracked, but we got recipes for this kind of sacrament stuff over on Mystic Journeys channel. We got a couple playlists made, so go check out Nerdy's playlist for how to make this stuff. Cookie or sucker recipe coming soon. Reminds me how Cliff Burton died. They were arguing over bunks. Tour bus driver hit black ice in Denmark, and Cliff was crushed. From what I recall, Kirk Hammett was supposed to have that bunk. It's crazy. Wow. I'm going to keep that in mind for when we cover Metallica. Cool. Sweet. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, be here next Saturday for the Hollies. We're going to cover the Hollies, and this one kind of went long, but I feel like I needed to cover a lot. I can't wait till we get to a band like Slipknot. We're going to be like, oh, these were all the members, and these are... Oh, that's going to be really crazy, but hopefully the Hollies is really simple. I don't know anything about them, but I'm excited to learn, and hopefully we'll discover some new music in the process of it all. Cheers. The sucker is corn-free syrup. Corn syrup free, rather, and vegan. Sweet. Cool. Thank you guys so much. Come hang out on Discord. We're going to jam out. Come on, let's go hang out. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. See you guys next week. Or actually, we'll see you Monday for Mystics. Bye, everyone.